Hi, I'm Marty Grizzanti, and this is the Marty Grizzanti Show. As a full-time real estate investor and business owner, I have a real fascination of finding the key principles for business success and personal development. This show is a reflection of my personal mission to find out what truly makes somebody successful in business and in life. We will find tools and tactics that they've used to reach those levels. If you're the type of person is not satisfied with average and you have a hunger for learning that will never cease, this show is for you. Welcome to the show. So I don't know if this is true, but when I was working I was an intern at the town of Greece. And so let me go back a little bit. My family lived on Edgemere. And I remember always driving to Charlotte, right? Going to the char pit, of course, for Zweigles, and we'll get into that in a minute. But we'd always drive by this pink house. And I told my parents, I'm like, I'm going to own that house one day. Because I loved it. It was just different. Is it true that was a Zweigle's house or like a family house? Like, tell me about the Zweigle's house. Because it's not pink anymore and I'm mad about it. It should still be, but what are you going to do?
It's not pink anymore. And it was my great uncle Bill's house. So he was one of the Zweigel brother Inc. owners. Yes, and they would often have, I say often, I don't know how much often is, but they would do a lot of, he in particular would do a lot of entertaining at that house with people who worked at Zweigel's. We have like pictures of them, people hanging in the basement, and my grandfather's in pictures with my grandmother, and people, I'm like, oh, that's Uncle so-and-so and whatever. So yes, he did that as well. And then I know he also entertained back, and I'm going to assume during the war. Let's see, he would, and I don't want to call them per se, they were orphan children, but during the day, I think when moms would go work, it wasn't that long ago, but I received a letter from one of the kids, and they would a few times a year entertain the kids whose like fathers were overseas, mothers were working, and they would have them for like a picnic and a day at the house where they could just be kids and serve them Zweigles, of course, but they had games and things for them to do. And the person who sent me the letter said he thought it was just a really fun time where they could just get away from reality. And he's like, I really appreciated that your uncle did that. So great uncle.
That's so cool.
It is cool because I would never really known about it. You know, you always wonder sometimes the depth to those family values.
Sure.
I did not meet my great uncles. And so that's second generation. So they obviously learned it from first generation. And, you're always giving back to people and appreciating those around you. So, yeah.
No, that's awesome. No, it's cool. Just kind of full circle, because it's like I see the house and now we're talking, and it's it's awesome. It's awesome.
A pretty famous house. We had a few pictures. We have pictures of the house in some photographs and things. And so, yeah.
Oh, that's
no longer pink. I know.
And it's just so funny that that it was like the house of like that I've always wanted. That house, again, something, my goals have changed a little bit. I still think it's a cool house, but that I may not go with the pink next time around.
Got it.
So, it's interesting. So guys, for those that don't know, I have on today Julie Camardo, and I'm really excited to talk to you, Julie, because, that's 5 generations of being in business, your company, Zweigles. Everybody knows Zweigles, guys. This is, you're crazy if you don't. Actually, no, John, I have a buddy, John. John, you're completely wrong. Hoffman's is not even close. So he's from Syracuse. So I'm gonna let this slide, but you're way off.
Not even family owned anymore.
It's not even family owned anymore. So beat it. I want to talk about the business. That's why I'm here. We know what great jobs you guys do. We know that, one of the things I was talking to Ken Glazer about was that there has been so many businesses who were in the city of Rochester, right? That started in the city of Rochester, and then they moved out of the city of Rochester. I give you guys a lot of credit because it probably may have been easy to leave the city at some point. Maybe there was opportunities to leave the city at some point, but you didn't. And you've just recently, you guys, invested even more money into the city of Rochester and even more money into jobs into the city in some of the parts of the city that may not be an area that would be invested in. So I just want to give you a little bit of a little hand clap here because this is where I'm from. I take it very seriously. And I think there should be more companies who, just like you've talked about in the past on other shows, that, yes, we love to support the community. They support us. But at the same time, an area that needs a lot of support is the city of Rochester. And so I keep mentioning this, but there's some big companies. And I know there's some coming in now, Constellations, kudos, all that good stuff. But there's a lot of companies that don't have a footprint in the city of Rochester that certainly easily could. So, thought process to you, was that a decision you have always thought, hey, this is what we're going to do? Was it the family thought, hey, no, we're not leaving, even if to go to the suburbs, whatever? Like, what was it for you guys to stay, and why is that important to you?
Yeah, so a little bit of history. When Zweigle's was back in 1880 when it first established. They obviously was in the city, was over on Joseph and Kelly. And then my great uncles, they expanded it. There was a second building. So they had the storefront with the store, and then a second building where they did some refrigeration and smokehouse. And but the city ended up, they actually asked Zweigle's, well, it wasn't just Zweigle's and other businesses. And obviously it's also a place where people, they lived. They asked them to leave. So urban renewal came and they sort of kicked us out. And my grandfather did look for a place outside of Rochester. For some of those who are listening, one of the locations he went to was in Henrietta. And he went, I actually have some of the paperwork of like the meetings he went to and the boards and all. And so the long and the short is that they said, no, he couldn't be in Henrietta because there was already another manufacturing plant in Henrietta. And I believe that plant at that time also did slaughtering. We have not ever done that. So they didn't want that there. My grandfather then went, was sort of, okay, I'm committed back to the city, wanted to be in the city. It was my, so, and we had a number of employees that were in the city. So it was a little bit of a zigzag, but they ended up purchasing where we are today was a former meat plant. And by the time I came back in, I'll say 2002, or when I, joined the business, more seriously, I had worked all my various positions. I say a lot of the time here. They were already in process of talking about options for expansion at that point.
Interesting.
So my grandfather and my mom were still very much involved in the business, and I am, at that point there was a decision made to expand the current business where it was. So when we looked at options, and we looked at, it's not just expanding as we kept growing, the smaller expansions we had done, a few of them, we, added on a little bit of a warehouse space once it finally made financial sense to do that versus storing offsite. Real estate people would understand that math. There's a big ROI. That one's pretty simple.
Absolutely.
But, it takes a little bit of time to get there. And then we put on a smaller, call it 5,500 expansion where we do some different type of business in order to diversify. And then again, what you're referring to probably is our most recent expansion, which was in 2020 completed. And the sort of part of the reason why we did it all locally, there's a couple of things. One, and we did, we had some conversations completely out of state. We did look at other real estate in the area, in the city. And then we talked to, another developer to, consider other properties in the Monroe County area in general. So we had a few things to consider. One, where do our employees live? Where do they live and work? So that's really a big consideration. And how would that affect our business?
Absolutely.
And then two, what investments had we already put into the building in which we're in? And what could we take with us? What couldn't we take with us? And believe it or not, we have some smokehouses that are pretty much built right into this building and we still use them today. But even the newer ones that we have, those things are just, they're expensive to move. They're hard to move.
Absolutely.
And so really it just made sense for us to stay here in Rochester, in the city. There are challenges where we are in the city of Rochester, let alone the real estate. And since, this is real estate, the real estate investment, this isn't really an investment property. I should clarify if anybody's questioning, it's not. We don't get our bang for our buck for what we put on this property. We didn't do it for that purpose. We
Right.
really, it was about all the other things that I mentioned. And then really the base of our like success and why we're here and why, um, regardless of like the city, the county, the, the area that we're in, it's because of the people that have supported Zweigles all these years. And so, as we're looking to grow, we always, look at other options and what would that mean? In reality, though, our employee basis is here, right here in the city of Rochester, um, where it started.
I love it. I love it. No, I think that's everything. I mean, it's the investing in the people. I think that's really what it comes down to is if your employees are here and you're making it as easy as possible for them to make sure that, hey, your job's right around the corner, or it's an easy drive, or it's an easy bus route, whatever it might be, to get people to the job. That's what you're going to do, and that's what you did. So that's why I say kudos to you. Um, let's talk a little bit about taking me back, right? Take me back to you know I heard you say before that you obviously grew up in the business, but also grew up in working in the business as well. Like your first couple of jobs were at Zweigles in the different areas of the business, whether finance, sales, the floor, all those different things, and that's really important. Um, was it ever in your head at 21 or 22 that you were going to then at some point take the realm of the Zweigles empire? Like what was your thought? Like what did you think? Like what was it going to be? Or were you like, I always wanted to take this thing, Marty? You have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, so I didn't know that I did. I did have numerous different roles through, I guess through our lifetime, but that's what, and you're in a family business, that's what you do, I guess. Um, no, it wasn't what I thought I wanted to do. And I was living in Maryland when making the decision to come back to Rochester, and it was at the time I realized my grandfather was getting older. My mom was, my mom was taking a more serious role in the company, an active role, and it was just the business is my sister and myself. She did not want to be actively in the business, and I wanted to see if I was interested in the business. So I said, "Hey, mom, I'm interested in coming back to Zweigles," and it's so she's like, "Well, I have a job for you." I'm like, "That's okay." So it's not like now where there's plenty of jobs to be had.
Right, right.
So in the end, there was an opportunity for me. I actually did end up coming, and there were some roles and responsibilities on her plate that I ended up taking over that were in my wheelhouse. I was in sort of HR kind of recruiting area, but from there, I did roles like that. I did some finance work. I spent some time. I've spent some time on the shop floor, so in the lab and in the kitchen. I had I had in college spent time in our packaging area, so we spent more time in areas where I hadn't done deeper dives per se, and it was really important to be able to understand that part of the business for me going into it,
Absolutely.
because I truly wanted to see, like, is this something I really like? Do I enjoy being here? And some of it, it's I love the product. I love the people that are here. They are family to me in many ways. I grew up with a lot of these people,
Mm,
but I'm watching me grow up, I guess, is more like it.
sure.
And at the same time, there's really great pride of being able to continue a long-standing family business in, um, you know, I guess we'll say in Rochester. I think it's pretty amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's awesome. That's absolutely. And you should be proud. I think it's great. And I'm assuming your mom was probably thrilled when you called that day.
I didn't even ask her how she felt. I don't know.
Okay. That's awesome. I'm sure that the company's in a better condition because you took it over, because it's still in the family, and that's a very tough thing. I mean, you see a lot of these. Like, what's your thought? You see a lot of these companies where at the third generation, right? It's like tough times lead to tough women. tough women lead to easy times lead to weak women lead to tough times, right? So there's this circle that happens, and you unfortunately the generations below don't have a lot of times that same grit or maybe the same urgency to kind of take it to the next step. And a lot of times those three, second generation, third generation businesses fail. Why are you guys different?
That is a really great question. My grandfather was third generation, and I know that he loved, he loved the sausage making part of it. He learned a lot from his two uncles, just, in a very different way. He probably more intimately grew up in the family business because things were very different back then and how you worked in a family business. And he did a wonderful job continuing the family legacy. So he took it over from Zweigle Brothers, and it became Zweigle Inc. And he made some very smart investments. He also was very cautious in other areas of the business when he was took over the business, when some other, because there were other similar businesses in Rochester at the time. And so some of those businesses didn't end up continuing on for various reasons. My grandfather ended up, making investments in certain areas. He partnered, we partnered with some great sports organizations, and we did a lot of hard work with Wegmans and the Wegmans companies. And then at the time, Tops was also a family owned business as well. So recognize the importance of that, recognize the importance of, and maybe in the meat industry, it's very common, but the customer service part of it. So we are very strong in our customer service, working very hard to make sure we have good quality product, but then also serve our customers well. That came from, whether it be when we think like a big retail store, such as like a Wegmans, and Tops for, or the smaller stores, the smaller mom and pop stores that people still go to today, and then food service. You have just the charbroils of the world. You have your Shalers, you have your Big
Yes.
Brays, Tom Walls. Lots of family businesses in some ways that have changed over the years. I could still continue to tell the story, like the Sunday drives. That's where we were. We were going to the restaurants,
I love
eating
that.
hot dogs.
I love that. I love that.
Uh-huh.
What a way
Yeah.
to like keep the connection with your fan. I mean, what is just like an experience that you remember, obviously to this day, and how important it must have been for your family to do that. You probably didn't really recognize it at the time, but it was like this was they were doing really just the pop-ins on their customers. You know what I mean? And it was really just, hey, how can we do better? Or checking out how people are eating it. Do they like it? Are they buying it? I mean, it's really just, it was probably all of it. And that's probably a little bit of the secret to the success is doing that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a lot. It's a lot of everything. So it's the running a business in the state of New York, not always the easiest thing to do.
No, it's hard.
It is hard. I
They're
mean,
making it harder.
yeah, it is hard. And, over the time in that third generation, my grandfather, he worked hard, stood the test over time, really invested his own personal, yeah, time, talent, and treasure into this business.
I like that. Time, talent, and treasure. Yeah, because what you basically said to me is, hey, we're just constantly trying to bring value. We're constantly trying to bring value, and that's the separator. Is at the end of the day, we have really put an emphasis on value, whether that's customer service, whether that's in the product, whether that's making sure our people are taken care of, making sure that all those things. And it's value, value, value. So let's take me back to the maybe I guess to some decisions that you've been making or that you've made. Like, can you think off the top of your head? You said you took over in 2002, or is that when you came back in 2002? You came back, took over in 2009. You had mentioned, I guess I'll kind of make it a little easier, but you mentioned doing some coaching and mentoring. How important is coaching and mentoring for you? And what do you think for other people when maybe they are, stepping into a role that might be new, that it's a tremendous role and there's a lot of responsibility. Did coaching and mentoring really help get you prepared? And would you suggest it for everybody?
I do suggest always personal development. How a person chooses to search out and seek their right personal development, it differs for everybody, but I absolutely do. For me, it was a little bit of a coming in for a role and knowing that there was still growth that needed to happen, still learning that needed to happen, and getting support from my key management team, and the board of directors supporting in the process. It is always so. Coaching has multiple levels. So the type of coaching that I have, I'm in Vistage, and we get one-on-one coaching. There's our group meetings, so we meet together and we discuss issues and problems. And usually, when somebody has something that comes up, you're like, "Yeah, I have something similar." And then you learn. You have experts that you learn from, and then the team itself just collectively together will help each other out on issues that come up and opportunities. I say issues, they're not always negative. It sounds negative. Opportunities that come up that need to be addressed, and where we can help each other be successful. It's always just constantly learning. So unless, if you're not always wanting to constantly learn, that's, I don't know that certain levels and roles are right for you, but there is always a need to make improvements, to gut check yourself, to find out what you're doing. And depending on sometimes the level that you're at, who do you report to? So everybody else, people who are a lot of real estate people, if I'm, incorrect, I think you are your own, like you kind of report to yourself. So in a sense,
Yes.
right? They're hardworking. They have to try to get their own clients, and it's not necessarily an easy thing. So
Yeah, I
I
agree.
love
I
that you
think,
do it.
no, I 100%. I love that. I think a lot of it is, to first of all, to do coaching, you have to really believe in yourself, right? You have to believe that it's going to be worth it. And you have to, but I think it starts with just like a confidence in that, hey, I'm the type of person that can, do this role. But I know that because you have to be self-aware. Like, hey, I'm not going to be able
Extremely.
to, right? I'm not going to be able to take this right over quite yet. I want to be the best I can be. And if I just go in, that's what a terrible attitude if someone were to say, like, and here's why businesses fail. This is why family business fail, is because they don't think they need it. When you're the person that needs it the most. Anyone who thinks they don't need it the most, right? And and that's why I think it's a lot of like, who are you? What type of person are you? Being self-aware, I think, is a really key element to being a business owner. Do you think so?
Yes, self-awareness is very important. However you recognize that term, vulnerability, knowing your own strengths and weaknesses is extremely important. And then being able to know how if you want to, what, if there are changes that you want to make, and how you want to act upon that. But extremely important. If you are in whatever role you're in, it's always important to evaluate yourself in some way, shape, or form. And sort of like, it's just, you need to be open to the fact that you're not going to know all the answers. You are going to need help at some stage of the business. I don't care who you are. You can't sell a house on your own. Somebody actually has to want to sell that house. Somebody has to want to buy the house, right? You have to have financial people that have to help people in real estate or a property or something. So it's not all done on your own. Maybe once it was, but it's not anymore. Lots of
The team
people,
sport, right?
right? Everything's a team. So you can't do anything on your own. And at the same time, it's really important to be, like you said, it's just extremely important to be self-aware. I think people are better for their own team,
Mm.
knowing where they are. And it's also okay to express to your key group, your trusted members, and say, here's what I'm working on. Here are the things that I need to improve upon. You can call me out on them if you don't see me doing these things. You can support me in these ways. And and you might also take the time to have them recognize what areas they need to improve upon and work on. But first, you got to do it top down. Top
Yes.
down. It's never bottom up, and never. It's top down.
Well, I
Yeah.
love that you said that in a way, it's like, you get to be vulnerable because you're getting coaching, right?
Yeah.
And that might be a complete mindset shift for somebody even thinking like, I never even thought about coaching. I never even thought about how I would let somebody kind of in, right? And being so that's where that vulnerability comes from. But at the same time, again, I think it's important to think about how that you want to also be held accountable. And a lot of people maybe don't necessarily want that. They may say they want it, but even like you went so far just to say that you'll want accountability even from your executive team, let's say, or your key
Yeah.
group, right? And I think that's huge, and hopefully they would want that same thing as well. Because if you're both trying to be better, you kind of have to have that, right?
Right. Yeah. You want some, not every team, and it's per chance, not every team may have that feel that we have here. So we have
Mm,
that family business feel here. We care about each other. We want to support each other. If we want to do well, we want to be successful. And um there are always opportunities, challenges that we have to come across both personally and professionally. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of times when we talk about opportunities, issues that come up, sometimes it's the personal stuff that might get in the cloud space
mm,
of the professional stuff. Some people are really good at putting that aside. But when it's really hard stuff, I haven't met a single person that can just completely block it out without it affecting them in some way, shape, or form.
What do
So
you suggest for those folks that are having those situations? Like for me, I would say, hey, you know, what's your workout routine look like? Right? That's a pretty, that's easier said than done. But if you're not doing it, then I want you to do it. Right. So what do you have any sort of like is there a process for like, hey, so let's talk, first of all, talking about it, knowing about it is huge so that you can even
right.
know there's a problem. But is there
So yeah.
what would you say to people about that?
So if someone's having a personal issue, you sort of have to. I mean, you have to be aware of the person. Like, who are you talking to? Everybody
Mm,
has different ways that they deal um, with their own challenges. Some
yes.
people are better at hiding them than others. And that's when a lot of questions, you got to ask questions,
Mm,
talk to people. I don't just talk to, and I don't necessarily just talk to my key team. We get on the shop floor and I talk to the people on the shop floor and I ask them about how their day is and what's going on. And, I mean, everybody's got, everybody, if you get, at some point, people like to talk about themselves and then but truly to get to the root of them, you also have to know who you're talking to.
right.
You just necessarily walk up to someone you don't know, although sometimes people do just tell you things. But in
Right.
reality, it's just trying to find out, hey, why are you having a good, like, what's going on? Or why, like, hey, you're having a great day. What's going on? Tell me what's so great. Or, um, I notice that something's just not right.
Mm,
And it's usually being aware of other people's, um, I guess their all of their whole kind of person. It's having strong. So not only, it's important to have IQ skills, but it's really important to have those emotional intelligence, that EQ skills to hone in on people. It's more than just it's not in this, you're not going to see it in an email, but you're going to know, you might notice something in body language, in their tone of voice, in the way they show up, in how they are working around other people. And sometimes, like I was, there's a period of time not too long ago, it was like my office was sort of this open revolving door. I'm like, come in and sit down and tell me what's going on. Sometimes people are willing to open up more than others right away. Other times, it takes a little bit, but ultimately, a lot of times it's something that's bothering people that might get them stuck. And hey, it can be work related. It's not all. I don't want people to be like, oh, it's only personal issues. Zweigle says a lot. It's not what I'm saying. Oh, they must have a lot of personal issues over there. It must be one messed up family.
well,
But
you kind of have to be
but
a
it
little
could be
crazy.
inter-office. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, people in the office, different
Yeah.
personalities. There's conflicts. If you have people, there are challenges. Everybody's got different personalities, so it's trying to resolve those as quickly as possible.
I think that that's why you guys are so successful. I think that you having your, you know, obviously, you're a psychology major, right? And so having that sense, listen, business is psychology. It's so much psychology. It's running a business is completely, you need to be like everything you just said, perceptive, know how to read people, know how to immediately engage, take the temperature of the room when you walk into it to know what the heck is going on. And do you think all of those things, do you think that, and maybe even just because you like it too, do you think that's been a really key part in why you are successful as a CEO?
I think that that's a hard question to ask because I think it's a really critical skill to have in today's day and age, especially as the workforce compared to when my grandfather was first, like when he was running the business, there was a different ethic. In today's ethic is very employee focused. It's you have a variety of people. I have multiple generations that are working for me now. I mean, from baby boomers to the generation I think could have. I'm not sure it's Generation Z. Are they 18 yet? I don't know. Maybe borderline.
Right there, yeah.
And so you have people that view the world differently, view work differently, and trying to understand all of that and how in the future. So I have people that eventually, they've been retiring, and so I'm preparing for that. But it's how the new upcoming workforce is going to be working with me, never for, with. Like that might have been
Absolutely.
back when they work with me, we do this together, we're a team, those mean things. And you have to be aware of how you're going to in the future manage your people. And so yes, I think that having that sense, it's one aspect of it, that's not the whole aspect of it, but it's definitely, I think, a bigger portion of it than it used to be. Absolutely.
I love that. I love that. I think that's great. And I appreciate that. And it's been really impactful. And I know we got to wrap up here. So a couple of questions for you, Julie. Feels like
Sure.
it flew by, and it did. But um, if there was one metric that you could track in your business, is there one that you look at maybe weekly, monthly, and it could be just, listen, brother, I'm looking at my P&Ls. I mean, it's that easy. Or, I mean, or is there one, it's like, hey, actually, it's more of like our culture. I can kind of tell if they're in it or not. Like, what is it for you that you're looking at, that one metric?
Yeah. I can't say we have one metric. We have many metrics that we view on a weekly basis. Anywhere we do, we sales dollars, we do pounds. In terms of financial, we look at it runs the gamut depending on, we look at our cash, which is important. That's important to look at. We look at net. I want to be
Yes,
clear.
not gross, people. Net.
Net.
What's the
Yeah.
actual amount that's coming
Yeah,
into
net
your coffers?
operating profit. So, hey, we sometimes drill down. We look at specific meat costs as well, because that is a big driver of our business and a very big percent of, we're a service business. So that is an important thing for us to look at. If that's going up, we need to make changes. We watch. It's a leading indicator. And then we also, look at metrics such as any, customer complaints, quality things, safety incidences. So, our overall company efficiency, we look at those metrics too, just to see how we're doing. So we have a variety. Um,
Hey, Julie, I said one.
I
I'm just
know
kidding.
you
I
just
love it.
said one,
I
and I
love it.
can't just say one. I
No,
mean,
you're right.
obviously, net profit isn't pretty important, but
All
cash
right.
is too. Cash is king.
Dash is king. No, I love that. I think you have to have your KPIs, and obviously you have to have them all. And if you're looking at those weekly, that's amazing. So I love that. Okay, business book. Do you have a business book, or what are you reading right now? Is there something that you're reading right now, or a podcast that you like, or a YouTube channel that you're watching that you enjoy?
Let's see. Reading right now. Um,
It can be fiction or
I,
nonfiction.
I was about to say, geez, like when my son is reading a book about Lincoln, so I'm kind of helping him read that book, or sometimes I
Okay,
get sucked into those things. So I don't
good.
really think that's it. Although I was like, oh, I didn't know that happened. So that was kind of, so
I like
I
it.
guess I'm not reading that any per
All
se
good.
business book, But I'm trying to think. I mean, we do EOS, so
Ah,
um,
yes.
entrepreneurial operating system, and I
Love it.
highly so for a business our size, I think it's a really great read. I highly recommend the I guess the management process of it. It's been very helpful. It's not the end all and be all for everything, but it definitely was it's a good tool for us to use and to guide. And so there are multiple types of books that are in that same kind of family. I
Yeah, EOS, for those who don't know, it's usually for companies that are maybe like 15 employees and larger. So,
agree.
and there are some people listening that have that, and so if they're thinking about how they can maybe get a little bit sharper and how can they can maybe turn that some whatever it is that mess like Jeff Cook had at Cook Properties was talking about, the policies and procedures that he had to really take it to the next level to scale it, and I think EOS was a big part of it. Julie, last question for you:
Yeah.
if you lost it all today,
Which
right? And that's never going to happen because of all the loyal fans. But if you lost it all today, what would you do?
lost it all today. That's never going to happen. So I can't answer that question.
It wouldn't be going back to
If
psychology,
I
right?
won the $2 billion,
Right, right.
I would
But
still
if you
come to
did,
work the next day.
I still come to
Um,
that's that's dedication, people. Julie, thank you
yeah,
so
I don't
much.
know.
I,
I
well, no, I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're on the shot clock here, and I know you got to run, so I want to be respectful of your time. So, guys, that was Julie Camardo over at Zweigle's, the CEO of a 5 generation family business. Everyone knows Zweigle's. Everyone loves them. Julie's actually, I was going to ask the question, but I already know she's a white hot girl, as am I. I'm a white hot girl, and so, Julie, anything you want to leave these people with? Do you have any thoughts, feelings, anything where they could find out more information about Zweigle's other than going to the, Wegmans grocery store?
um
Any
so
new things
yeah.
coming down the line? Mama Camardo's, what's anything that's coming down the line that you might want to tell people about?
Okay. Not where I well, follow us on social media. If you do
Okay.
social media, we have a great an amazing person who does a lot of our social media. So we're in the old school Facebook. That's where you might find like me at. But I know that Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. So if you aren't already following us, yep, check out our webpage. We have some. We always try to update our recipes if we don't do something, obviously on social media. I guess that's where people go. And let's see what else to share. I don't know. Just keep watching because yeah, we're still here. So yeah,
And they're not going anywhere. So
not
that's
my
it,
plan.
guys. I appreciate your time, and we'll catch you next time. Peace.
Thank you, Marty.
Thank you for tuning into the Marty Grizzanti Show. If you're listening on Apple Podcast, leave us an honest rating and review. If you're on Spotify, make sure you follow us for weekly episodes.